Could it be that arguably the greatest coach to ever coach college football is leaving? But more important than that, who wants to follow the greatest? Could it be Dabo Swinney? We'll talk about that in college hoops here on today's show.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you download, subscribe to the pod from anywhere, but especially interacting with our YouTube community. We know that you guys certainly love to leave your comments, talk to us. We love to talk back and always interact with our fans. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Today's episode is one that is just popping out. You know, sometimes you have a plan and then you have to rip it up because breaking news hits your doorstep. Nick Saban has been alleged to be retiring from Alabama. A lot of, I'm sure, Locked On SEC, Locked On Bama, going crazy, doing an emergency pod, figuring out what's next. You know, what could be, what does it mean for the legacy that is Alabama, and how do you turn the page, and who could possibly replace? So we'll talk about all of that here on today's show, where Kenton, I'm sure, has many a thoughts. But let's start with that first. Nick Saban retiring.
You know, a lot of people are talking about all the coaches that are retiring right now, right? And you have two absolute legends in the college game in Pete Carroll and Nick Saban. And you know, when you look at Nick Saban, you have a guy that is arguably one of the greatest coaches, regardless of sport, of all time in terms of the major North American sports. It's a loss for the game. It really and truly is. There's only one Nick Saban. There's only one him. You know, you can have all the sons and all the clones and all the guys from his coaching tree that act a lot like him and all that. They're not him, right? It's the same thing with Greg Popovich in the NBA. Half the NBA is his coaching tree. None of them are Greg Popovich, but Greg Popovich. It's the same thing with Nick Saban, right? Kirby Smart ain't Nick Saban. Dan Lanning ain't Nick Saban. Nick Saban is Nick Saban. There's only one Nick Saban. And it's, you know, Sark ain't Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, everybody who's coached under him. Hey, they did great jobs. They did good things, but Nick is Nick. And, you know, it's a huge loss for the game of college football, where because of the nature of college football now, with not only the transfer portal, but also with college basketball being what it is and no longer being as relevant of a sport because players are leaving more quickly and transferring out. College sports, college football in particular, the coaches are the stars. Let's just be honest, right? Nobody was thinking, oh, Jalen Milroe's got that much talent. That's why he's going to keep them in this game. It was Saban is Saban. And we think he's going to be just fine because every time you bet against Saban, he's going to make it happen. So, you know, I get it. At some point in time, everybody has to move on. Everybody has to grow to the next level, grow to the next stage. And sometimes when you get to that peak, the next stage is retirement. And that's where Saban is because, I mean, hey, what more could you ask of him if you're a Bama fan? What more could you have asked of him if you're an LSU fan? What more could you have asked of him if you're a Michigan State fan? As a college football fan in general, what more could you have asked of Nick Saban?
Sure. I think a couple things, to pull out of your statements there. One, there is no replacing Nick Saban. Completely agree. I think that what he's done, not only for the game, but for other coaches, we talk a lot about the coaching tree, but being able to get some second, third time chances, whether it's being a quality control coach or, come back and be an assistant for Saban while you clean up your life. There's just been so many times where he's opened doors for people that you would hope is something that the coaches that come behind him sort of carry, but you just never know in this climate that's a little more cutthroat and not as much, boys club or keeping it all in the family type beat as it used to be, some would argue. I think that the opportunities before Nick Saban were, definitely steep, but he answered the call and then some. Like when you talk about college football playoff, when you talk about national championships, when you talk about excellence and consistent excellence, we could talk about Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers, not having a losing season, but there's just something about someone who's always in, national conversations to either be number one, close to number two, or end up being number one in the end. So I think that's just a real testament to who Saban has been and the culture and discipline that he's built and how he's really sort of kept it in house and really kept it real with, with college athletics. And to say that being in your 70s is being in your 70s. Father Time is undefeated.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a different cycle now, where college athletics is you're always a 24/7 thing. You don't necessarily get the breaks as you used to. You're always going to somebody's home. You're always having to be on the recruiting trail. Now you're trying to get guys and poach and figure out how to bring in transfers and make it all work and still have them buy into your system. And if guys aren't playing, we're used to guys who sat in the back at Alabama for 2 to 3 years, but they didn't mind because it's Alabama. You're going to a national championship game. It's a guarantee.
Right.
Nowadays, you want people to be the star. You want to go out and be the starter. You think you're the best of the best and creme de la creme. And you sort of probably get tired of that. I kind of saw that with Roy Williams in terms of just the way the game was changing and just how you would have to compete in certain old school tactics just didn't work anymore. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, it's not worth all the dog and pony show that comes with what seems to be college athletics today.
Absolutely. And there were multiple points, and I want to make this very clear. There were multiple points this season where you kind of saw it, where you kind of looked at Nick Saban and you were like, he's had enough. Tell
us the points.
I mean, okay, so one of the biggest ones, right? After the Auburn game, Jalen Milroe, starting quarterback, throws the Hail Mary, saves the game, and he's screaming, give me that MFing Heisman. Give me that MFing Heisman, right? And Nick Saban says nothing to that. Nick Saban has had actual players win the Heisman. He's had multiple Heisman winners. He's had Devontae Smith. He's had Mark Ingram. He's had multiple players that actually hoisted the Heisman at the end of the year. And they weren't screaming, give me the Heisman at any point during or after the Iron Bowl. And yet this guy who was benched during the season and Saban didn't come out and address him like he has in many other times. Tua Tagovailoa is one of his favorite stories to tell about his time at Alabama was him talking about how he made a pass that very much so was one of those, no, what are you doing? Oh, yes, it was caught type of deal. Sure. And he said, Nick Saban asked him, what were you looking at? What were you doing? And he said, well, I was just trying to get the ball down there. Some joke or something along those lines. And Nick Saban looks up and says, that's not funny. After they won a national championship. This ain't talking about beating Auburn in the Iron Bowl, an Auburn team that just got a mud hole stumped in their behind by the New Mexico State Aggies a week earlier. So that's what I'm saying in terms of you could kind of see that some of that vim and vigor was gone a little bit. You could tell that it just
or he just sick of the shit. Let's just call it what it is, right?
Well, and that's the thing.
He's just sick of it.
And that's the thing. Maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe him being sick of it was what took away that passion to be like, stop. What you are doing is dumb. You don't deserve a Heisman. You're not even going to win team MVP. Stop.
But he's also of the old school to be like, I ain't gonna tell you that in public, but I'm gonna tell you get John Hindparts back into the locker room. I'm gonna tell you about yourself, right? He probably went home to his wife that night and said, you know what, this is about all I can do, Miss Saban. That's about all I can do, Mama.
And that's fair. That's 1,000% fair. Again, you can always see it, right? Like in anything, in any moment, in any relationship before the breakup occurs. B.B. King wrote a song called "The Thrill Is Gone." You can almost always point back to a moment where you say, I could tell that the love wasn't the same no more. And that was a moment for me.
Yeah, I think in a national championship game where he's like, I wish I would have coached them better and like taking real ownership of, the situation. Like, who knows whether it really is like how he felt about the guys and how they played or whether he felt like he coached them up or whatever. But I think taking that onus, maybe having some reflective moments. Again, I can only point to Roy Williams, the same conversations, like just the way he was tired of telling you to go get that rebound. He's tired. I don't want to tell you no more to, fill in the gap or do whatever you need to do to win this game. I'm tired of repeating myself. And I know an old person. I know a couple old people. They don't like repeating themselves, but so many times. Yeah. And in this day and age, when you have to coach up 18 to 22-year-olds, like they keep you young, youthful, all the things, but even everybody reached their point.
I'll say this, okay? I'll say this. Nick Saban, wonderful career, great job. And you know what? the being tired of the stuff and being tired of the game. I often say this, and people think I'm joking. Sometimes when I say this, I'm joking. Sometimes when I say this, I'm serious. I often look up, and I believe it was like a Giants. He was on their punt block team, and he was going to get the punt, I believe, against the Eagles. And he ran into their kicker by accident. And he's holding the kicker as he goes down to prevent him from flopping. And I'm like, is this man slow dancing on the field to prevent a 15-yard penalty? What happened to the game I love? And I get a feeling that Saban said that same thing to himself multiple times this year. He saw one of his players at LSU. He saw one of his former players who transferred out of Alabama to go to LSU. And he tapped the player on the shoulder and said, hey, man, you would have played more here than they got you playing over there. And that was one of those moments for me where I'm sure in his mind he thought walking off that field, what happened to the game I love?
Yeah.
This young man would have been an impact player for us, and he transferred out to go sit on the bench elsewhere because that's the new nature of ball. Back in the day when you transferred, you had to sit a year. What happened to the game I love? And I'm not saying that it's right that they had to sit a year. I actually like the portal more than the sitting a year. Let these players have the freedom of moving and all that. I think there should be some adjustments, sure. But let these players move how they want to move. But I think that he had one too many what happened to the game I love moments and was like, all right, that's it. That's it. I'm 72. I done made millions on millions on millions. I got more money than I can spend in the rest of my life. It's time.
Sure. And, there are conversations around what could be next for him, who could be next for him. And maybe, just maybe, I have the thought around if he potentially could come back. But first, I want to talk about our friends here at LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move that I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time to resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Now, of course, everything's coming about Nick Saban leaving, all of that good stuff. And, the next first thought is a thank you to Nick and how much he's done. He didn't have a farewell tour, so shout out to him for not doing that. As many legends as we've had in this game, I haven't seen too many other farewell tours. Just saying.
Farewell tours are stupid for coaches and players.
To the people in Durham, just letting you know. Farewell tours don't always go how you think. Maybe they saw that and said, actually, I'm all set.
I ain't going to speak ill on nobody. I ain't going to speak ill on nobody dead or alive. Farewell tours are stupid. Okay?
Just saying.
Go on about your way.
Now, it could not be needed for a farewell tour because sometimes you see your program going downhill, spiraling, and you come back and say, I could be the one that revives it. I have the ego and the brass and whatever it takes to come back. Mac Brown, looking at you. However, I don't know how well that's going, but we've seen it be done. But for argument's sake, let's just say he's out of here. Okay? Mm-hmm. Got to find someone else. Fine. Mm-hmm. There's a coach in Clemson, South Carolina, who isn't quite adjusting to the transfer portal as, one would think for someone who's trying to be a top tier 10 win after 10 win after 10 win type of coach. Maybe a national championship conversation, Final Four, all the things, top 12 when it's all said and done.
The 10 win conversation ain't enough for Dabo at this point. He set the bar too high. 10 win ain't 100%.
Enough. Well, thank you for letting me set up my thing nicely as I get talked about Dabo.
Sorry. My bad.
It's fine. It's totally fine. It's what we're here for.
Go ahead and cook.
It wouldn't be our show unless somebody ruined it.
Somebody ruined it. You see how she treat me? You see how she treat me? Y'all see how she treat me? Y'all see how she talk to me? Lord have mercy.
Dabo Swinney could potentially be a replacement. It's been talked about for years. When Nick Saban finally did decide to hang it up, that Dabo would be his successor. All I'm saying is it's kind of worked for Hubert Davis succeeding your head coach. Go with me now. Could it potentially work for Dabo? But who wants to be the man after the man?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to touch some ACC fan shoulders when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
Dabo's not leaving Clemson.
Why
He
not?
needs to stay at Clemson. He needs to stay at Clemson because Clemson, he bought them from nothing. He bought them from languishing in mediocrity. Let's just be very honest. He bought them from extreme mediocrity to where they are today. He's a lifetimer. He's a lifer. He can win. He cannot keep up with the portal and have that team regress into 9, maybe 10 wins a year and still be okay there. He can do that. He can't go to Bama and do that. If he goes to Bama and does 9, 10 a year, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, brother. We know exactly where you're going to be. Hey, I got a thing for you to do. Update your LinkedIn, Mr. Swinney. Update it right now, today, expeditiously.
Okay, but there's something about being a part of Bama, being a part of rich tradition that might rejuvenate his soul. That might get the juices flowing. That might get you one to be bought in. Knowing what the expectations are, that might set it up.
I'm going to quote one Sean Carter, poet and philosopher. You can try to change, but that's just the top layer. Homie, you was who you was when you got here. Don't get me wrong, right? I believe that people can change and grow in life. I don't believe that folks who are screaming at Tyler from Spartansburg saying that they're a grown man with kids and a wife and all the things, I don't think they're interested in changing. That's just my personal opinion. That's my personal opinion.
But for that money?
I don't think you understand. Dabo already has more money than he could spend feasibly in his lifetime. Like, unless he went out of his way to spend it, he already has more than he can spend in his lifetime, just like living a normal ho-hum life. So they can throw whatever they want at him. He's still going to be Dabo. He's still going to get down there and say, our program is built in Jesus's name, image, and likeness.
You think that wouldn't go over well in Alabama?
No, I was just about to say, that's not the problem. That in and of itself is not the problem. It is all the other things that go with Dabo, the refusal to adjust to the new world that's going to crush him. People talked about how bad the ACC is. Talk about the ACC like dogs. Talk about the ACC as if we're a bunch of nobodies who just happened to stumble upon shoulder pads and helmets one day, right? And yet, Dabo couldn't take care of that conference last year. And everybody said that the problem was the quarterback position. Well, Candace, did he go in the portal and address the quarterback position?
No, he tried to work with Cade and his new offensive coordinator, which I get.
Do they have a freshman coming in that's supposed to be a captain save a team? No, it's supposed to still be Klubnik, right? Defense, losing. Ball players, losing. All conference, all Americans, losing the likes of a Jeremiah Trotter Jr., or Tyler Davis, all that good stuff. And you're telling me that you don't need to get in the portal at all? You don't need to dip a toe? You don't need to see if the water's cold in the portal?
But do you have to dip a toe if you're going to Alabama, right? Do you really have to do all the work if you're going to be Alabama? Because the guys that you've already had, Nick basically spoon-fed you top 5 stars.
Can I ask you this? Have Georgia and Bama not been active in the portal? Have Georgia and Bama not gone and got the best team? Oh, wait a minute. This receiver had back-to-back 1,500 yards at Bowling Green. Come on.
That running back from Georgia Tech, I believe his name was Jahmyr Gibbs.
You're too good. Oh, wait a minute. You out there languishing in Atlanta? Listen, I know it's fun. I know them lemon pepper wings be hitting. I get it. I get it. Tuscaloosa ain't too far away from Atlanta. You can still have a good time every now and then, but come on and get some winning in your life. Come get this winning in your life. Let me put this pimping in your life. And next thing you know, Jahmyr Gibbs was wearing the crimson. Okay? He was wearing the helmet with the number on the side of it. Yeah, you know that?
Went right to the league.
And guess what? When's the last time Dabo landed somebody like that out the portal? Don't worry, I'll wait. Who's the guy?
I just feel like he's not – the reason he's not going is more about the fact that he doesn't want to be the guy after the guy, and his ego can't handle that, versus he doesn't want to leave Clemson and doesn't want to dip his toe in the portal.
That man ain't no fool. He knows where the grass is greener, okay? He knows where he can go. The reality for Dabo is this. If he went on to win, let's say this is Dabo's next 5 years, okay? Mm-hmm. Next year he wins 10 games. Year after that he wins 8 games. Year after that he wins 8 games. Year after that he wins 10 games. Year after that he wins 6 games. Does he get fired after that sequence of seasons? I say no, right? I'd say no because it's Clemson. If he did it in Tuscaloosa, he wouldn't even make it to the 6. He wouldn't even make it to that second 6 one.
You think so? People getting fired up top for 8 wins at Alabama like that? When you know you had to come behind Nick, ain't gonna have no patience.
But that's the thing.
Nobody's gonna be Nick, dog.
But you're coming behind Nick, and that's what Bama fans are gonna expect. Bama fans were mad at Nick when he wasn't Nick. When Bama was lost to Texas, they were calling for his head down there. As if it wasn't a ton of season left, as if it wasn't plenty of opportunity for him to still make the playoff, as if he still don't got all of his assistants calling cards. He got all their cards, all of them, including Kirby.
But at the end of the day, they ain't writing the checks. You know, the athletic director is the one telling you whether or not you can stay. Sure.
But that athletic director has to listen to the people who are filling the seats. He has to listen to them at some point in time. Because if those seats stop being full, if College Game Day stop being down there 2-3 times a season, okay, all right. We can pretend. We can pretend like how the fans feel have no sway on this thing. We can pretend. We can live in a la-la land and make believe. We could hope that Paul Firebaum gets up there and lies his tail off for Dabo like he's been doing for all these other SEC coaches for years. We could hope that man that go in the barbershop and say, take a little off the top, leave the sides, go up there and lie for him the same way that he's been lying for years. But I promise you, it ain't going to work out like that.
So if not Dabo, then who?
I'm thinking, they say Dan Lanning is the front runner. I'm thinking Dan Lanning's probably the guy. Coaches can't wait to leave Oregon. Coaches cannot wait to leave Oregon. Every time they touch a foot down there, where's that next job? I swear for Lord, I'm waiting on that next job.
I also think they have no conference, so that's an easy out. You know what I'm saying? They have nothing to play for, and there's no exciting parts of that. But I think that Dabo should dabble your toe. Why not?
Okay. All right. Listen, I'll say this. Go ahead. Dabo, I don't know if you're a friend of the show or not. You know, I don't know if you like listening to this podcast.
Listen, he probably listened to us right after Tyler. So,
hey, listen, Tyler from Spartanburg, you got a direct line to the brother. So, if you listening, let's have a talk with Dabo. Dabo, I advise you, pursue your dreams. Dream big. Go talk to them people in Alabama. Go ask them how they feel about your approach and you doing things your way. And your way being different than the modern football way. Your way of avoiding the portal. Your way of trusting high school recruiting and player development at all costs. Your way that just saw you lose receiver number 1, running back number 1's going to the NFL, and you got a quarterback that's throwing bubble screens on 3rd and 1 in overtime. I want to see what they say about it. Report back with us. Tyler, you don't even got to tell us exactly what he said. Just paraphrase it for us. Just paraphrase it if you can.
Now, could you see someone we're throwing things out there? This is not happening, not news. Nobody's even putting their names out there. But if there were to be an ACC coach, Norvell, could you see that? Dave Doran? I argue that Dave Doran might be if we have to pick somebody to get us started before we find our guy, Dave Doran would be the guy. Bring Tony Gibson, that defense would be insane. I don't know.
In the words of Michael Clark Duncan, don't you wish that evil on me, Ricky Bobby? Don't you wish that evil on me? Dave Doran is perfect. NC State is perfect. Dave Doran. Those two match made in heaven. Norvell is a very interesting one because here's the thing: his career trajectory. It actually wouldn't be surprising for him to end up at Alabama in a few years as the guy after 2 steps removed from the guy or something like that. But he's not there right now. How do you think Bama fans would look saying, yeah, we just hired a coach that lost to one of our biggest rivals 63-3? The reality be damned, because we know, again, sometimes folks, especially in other conferences, I'm not going to talk about their academic rigor necessarily in other conferences. I'm going to just say the logic doesn't always follow, right? They don't understand, if you lose a quarterback and your team gets worse, imagine what happens when you lose 20 guys in 2 deep. They don't understand that in certain regions. Again, not pointing at anybody, just saying there's a struggle there. So they wouldn't be happy. They would not allow those folks to be riding in the streets if you hired a coach that just lost his last game by 60 to an in-conference rival.
Mike Elko maybe should have waited.
Now, you talking that talk now. You talking that talk now. Because I'm gonna tell you, he would have been a good dark horse for this one.
Oh
he would have been
God.
a good, great dark horse for this one.
Oh my God. Now you got to stress with Aggie program that God only knows how that's going to be, but you knew it was going to be at least a guarantee some dubs in Alabama. He might have could have waited. He might have should have waited.
But listen.
You never know. You got to try. Look, you got to try while the iron's hot. You're familiar with College Station. I get it. But maybe, just maybe, sometimes you got to wait on that blessing.
I'm going to tell you this, okay? A dream deferred is not a dream denied, okay? Mm-hmm. Sometimes things happen as they do. Things fall apart to come back together even more beautifully. And think about how amazing it would be if you talk about it in terms of Elko. Things work out that he doesn't get the job this time around. But we've seen guys go from one team in the conference to the other. Looking at you, Dan Mullen. We've seen coaches go from one team in the conference to another happily with no regrets, no looking back about it. So we'll see. But again, I Dabo, if you know what's good for you,
keep your ass right in Clemson, South Carolina.
Keep your behind in Clemson.
All right, guys, wrapping up here, but the regular season is also wrapping up for the NFL, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, find bets, the new Explore tab, and make the parlay in the Parlay Hub, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege and make your first bet count. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right, wrapping up the show today, we'd be remiss if we did not talk about the games happening in the hoops world, men's basketball specifically. Last night, Georgia Tech was taken down by Notre Dame. Shout out to, Mr. Shrewsbury. His son did his big one. Overtime win for the Fighting Irish. Georgia Tech and Notre Dame, two new head coaches facing off against each other. A great game. A lot of young guys, right? I think that's one thing if you're looking at programs and development. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech are certainly ones that are going to be dark horses in the next couple of years if things done right and they stick beside it. But I think it was a good game overall, just of exciting youth talent making very much rookie mistakes, but definitely see some problems out of both.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing is, you talk about who is doing the thing through player development versus getting the stars and all that good stuff. I'm going to tell you this much. Those are two universities that the academic prestige makes it a better spot for that development through year after year. Like, hey, stay with us for 3-4 years. At the end of this, you'll have one of the most prestigious degrees in America. You'll have a very strong alumni network and all that good stuff. And these two new coaches, I'm telling you, those two programs are only going to get better. They're only going to get better. I mean, the reality is these are two programs that, Notre Dame, that takeover was under some very not so great circumstances with the way Bray left and all. And kind of, I wouldn't say similar because with Pashner was kind of like, we like you. Thanks for winning us that ACC championship and all that, but It's time. But yeah, these are two situations where these teams, I think they have an upward trajectory. I could be wrong now, but I think they have an upward trajectory.
Speaking of being wrong, you were wrong about Wake Forest and trying to be in on the 4 teams, a part of the triangle, who were doing well. Wake Forest said, hey, hold that thought. We're going to turn the ball over more times than we can count. We're going to lose to Florida State in Tallahassee just so we keep things, spicy. We don't want to get too excited about ourselves. And I thought it was interesting. I was listening to commentary last night, and, this year, this season, Forbes has really been trying to tell the guys, all right, this is a quad 1 win. This will be a quad 2 win if you win, blah, blah, blah. Trying to be like, hey, these games mattered. But I don't know if it's working out. Definitely needed this one, right? Florida State, who knows how their season's going to turn out. They have had an up and down past couple of years, but vintage win for Hamilton. Certainly tried to give it away to Wake Forest towards the end, but 87-82 victory overall for the Tar Heels, Seminoles in the end.
As soon as you want to bury Coach Ham, as soon as you want to put that dirt on top of the grave and say, all right, it's time for Florida State to move on, like Solomon Grundy, he going to reach up out that grave and do what needs to be done.
Who is Grundy? Okay.
We're not gonna go here today.
All right.
We're not gonna go here today.
All right.
Just Google Solomon Grundy DC Comics. Okay.
All right.
Just look it up.
Yeah.
But anyway,
because I thought I thought you were talking about biblical, and I was like Solomon and Gomorrah. Okay.
No. Solomon and Gomorrah. I'm not even finna go there with you. I'm not finna do this. We're not doing Bible Bowl today. But here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. That was a very quality win for Florida State. You know, again, that's a good Wake Forest team. Despite the loss. And again, it still is because we got a team to still get to that is of the North Carolina teams in ACC did their thing as well.
100%. Let's talk about Duke picking up the big win against Pitt. You know, we can't talk not too much on Pitt.
Not too much on the Capels. Well, I'm going to give too much on the Capels because what the hell were y'all doing against Filipowski? Y'all made that brother look like prime Dirk Nowitzki out there. What is
not brother? He's the only brother. Go ahead.
I did see.
Easy, brother.
See, y'all see how Candace do me on this show. Put me in these positions to get canceled. Listen, y'all made that young man look like he's going to be the first overall pick next year. I mean, he was everywhere. So, Pitt, back to the drawing board. This year has been a struggle so far, but there's a lot of season left. We've seen many teams. That have turned their season around mid-season or early season. We saw it with Boston College this year. We looked at them and said, Halfley, brother, go ahead and pack them bags. Lo and behold, it's the year of 2024, and that brother still ain't had to update his LinkedIn yet. So, with that being said, y'all still got time. But Pitt, if you want to do something, turn it around soon. Duke is Duke basketball still. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
1,000%. All right, that is our time for today. We got to get up out of here. If you had missed the top part of the show, you missed our conversation around Nick Saban retiring, who might replace, and why Dabo Swinney is staying in Clemson. We also gave you little tidbits on ACC hoops, so make sure you check all of that out. Let us know your thoughts. Who would replace Nick Saban if they were an ACC coach? Kenton, I feel like that's a good community question.
Absolutely.
Throw that up there.
Absolutely. Also, Beamer is a legend nationally. Let's stop playing like Beamer is only a legend of Virginia Tech. Don't do that. If you know anything about college football, that man's a legend nationally.
100%. He's reading the live comments as we're recording. So there's that. But guys, make sure you check out the rest of our show. And if you haven't caught up on this week's episodes, do all of that. We'll be back tomorrow talking more hoops with some women action in there as well. So for Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Until next time.